Hi everybody, Academic English Skills, and this is another video. This time it's about using journal articles, and this continues from the previous video, which was about finding sources for assignments. Okay, so away we go. What are journals? Let's start right from the beginning. Okay, they are collections of current research in your subject area. Some journals will be very specialized. Some journals might be more general in terms of, how focused they are. But the idea is it's current research that's relevant to your subject. And because it's research and it's current, they will be more detailed than textbooks because they are written for specialists, remember? And as a student of a subject, you are considered to be a specialist. So a lot more detail, a lot more things to get through and read. They are published throughout the year. Some journals might be published more often than others, and they can be electronic or paper. However, obviously, these days they're going to be more electronic, so more e-journals, of course. And they are considered authorities on a subject, which is why, as a student, you're regularly told to look in journal articles, read journal articles. Many of them are peer-reviewed, not all of them, but many of them are peer-reviewed, which basically means that they being the articles, they go through a rigorous process of where they're edited and read by other experts on the subject just to see if they are suitable to be published. And so the idea is if an article has gone through this process, the article might be considered to be more authoritative, and more useful for you in your writing. Also think of journal articles as a continuation of an ongoing conversation, because obviously research happens all the time. New research is always happening. So often the journal will continue, on from previous research that was probably published elsewhere. So a journal can do these things. It can build on previous knowledge. It can fill gaps in previous research, so gaps that were left. And this journal article might, I've gone on to investigate those areas. It might actually comment on new gaps in research, what the significance of them are, compare new ideas with previous ideas as well. And often in the journal, you probably get recommendations for future areas of research which could be looked at. And so it's looking forward again. So it's almost like the research never stops, you could say. A few things to remember about journal articles. As I said before, they are written for specialists in the subject, like you. So language is technical, very detailed, okay? So this means the journal articles can take longer to read. So especially if you're someone who doesn't enjoy reading so much, hopefully you do, but if you don't, give yourself time. But as with books, you don't need to read everything. You very rarely will you need to read a journal article unless you've been told specifically to do that. And as you get more familiar with them, you'll see that they're not all the same. Some are organized differently. Some have different colors. Some have fonts that are more attractive or easier on the eye, that kind of thing. And also they're not all authoritative, so to speak. Some journals are not peer reviewed, and which means that it's questionable how trustworthy some of their work is. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind. But I'm sure you'll be recommended which journals to look at by your teacher, and then as you get more confident, you'll be able to find things for yourself. So make sure you read articles for a reason. When we're looking at our assignments and reading and making notes, we need to use our time well. Okay, so what we need to do. So look at the article title. So the journal article title, and basically, is the title connected to what you're looking for? If the answer is no, then read another article. Use the time wisely. There's thousands of other articles out there. Now, if the article is connected to what you're looking for, then the next step is to read the abstract. And does it have ideas that are connected to your assignments? Remember, the abstract is a complete summary, about 200 words of what the researcher did, why he or she did it, or why they did it, of course, what they found, and what this means. So before you read the article in detail, you already have a summary, which is really helpful, let's face it. So if the ideas are not connected to your assignment from reading the abstract, read another article. Okay, back to that. But if the abstract does have ideas that need a little bit more time spent on reading, then read the conclusion. Like a conclusion to an essay, a journal article, the conclusion summarizes everything. It also has other things as well, like it might make recommendations, but basically summarizes in more detail than the abstract about, what the research means or what it found, okay? Then when you enter the conclusion, read the introduction, which gives an overview of the whole research, the reasons for doing it, the discussion section, which has some critical writing in where the writer of the article will analyze the results and comment on what they mean, the significance, the methodology, which is useful if you want to replicate the research. Some scientific studies will want to try and replicate it. Or also you might find faults in the way things were done, and the methodology will be there, okay? And make notes. Remember, as we're reading, active readers, read for a reason. How can I use this information? Make notes on the relevant parts. Read with a purpose. Let's have a look at this. Okay, now it's just a little question to maybe think about. So it says there, discuss and evaluate the role of social media and the world of work. Now, if that was, imagine that's your assignment title, discuss and evaluate the role of social media and the world of work. And then below, we've got A, B, C, D, E. So these are 5 journal articles that you're considering reading in more detail. So look at those journal articles and assess which would be useful to be used in an essay to answer that question at the top. Pause the video for a second, have a think, because I'm going to display the answers in a moment. Okay, so the best one is clearly, well, hopefully clearly, is D, social media addiction and social media reactions, the implications for job performance, because it's about social media and it's also about the world of work. So definitely D would require a little bit more attention. B, it talks about LinkedIn, the potential of LinkedIn. So this could be used as an example, definitely possible. So you probably wouldn't need to use all of it. Just look at what maybe the conclusion discussion. A, now this is about job satisfaction. So it's collecting comments, it's data mining or text mining, it says there. Text mining of Twitter data. So it's actually not collecting opinions about how social media is likely to work. It's collecting opinions on job satisfaction. So be careful with that one. It's, look at the language in the title. A quick look at the title could maybe make us think, oh yeah, it could be related, but more detailed reading would be no. E, it could be used as an example, but it's very specific. Dutch police, very specific, so maybe not necessary. And C is irrelevant. It's about crowd computing, reward schemes, privacy preserving incentives in social media. So sure, it's about social media. It's not about the world of work. Okay, so as I just said on the previous slide, be selective. If you can't use it, don't read it. So common journal article structure. So when I say common, meaning some journals can differ. Not a great deal, but they can differ. So we'll have the abstract, we'll have the introduction, the lit review, the methodology, the results or findings, the discussion, and a conclusion. And there'll be a list of references, of course, right at the end. So these sections, 7 sections, these are very commonly found in a journal and usually in this order, maybe always in this order, I'm not sure, but I haven't found the journal article that started with the discussion, for example. Now, you'll see in the middle, it says, note these sections are often combined. That basically means sometimes the introduction and the literature review are combined together, and it might just be called the introduction. So if you've got a very lengthy introduction, it's highly likely that it will include ideas that would be found in a literature review section. Okay, so don't panic if your journal does not have a literature review section. It will probably be part of the introduction. Okay, so we're going to look at some of these areas in a little bit more detail now. So the introduction, things you might find. So a full background for the study, the context, why it's necessary for it to be done. So a rationale, like a justification for the research in many ways. It usually starts with existing knowledge and previous research, which is the literature of the topic on the consideration. So it will start with some background about the actual research area, what's happening in it, or what's happened in the past. And then if it does combine with a literature review, it will then go on to, compare and contrast who said what, why they said it, what they found. The introduction might also have information about the gaps that exist in the literature. So, one of the purposes of a literature review is to say what's missing, what areas haven't been investigated so much. And so in the introduction to the journal, it might also have that as well. Aims and objectives somewhere in the introduction as well. Might be near the beginning. You can find examples where they're at the end. Okay, but aims and objectives really going to be in the introduction. Methodology. Okay, again, this is quite a factual section. The section reports facts that tell us how the study was done. And I said, this won't be necessary for everyone, or every subject, I should say, but certain science subjects where, the idea is to replicate the study or find out, how the experiment was done. This is one of the key sections for science students. Humanities students, maybe not so much. And here's a list of things it can include: number of people in the study, how it was done, how they were chosen, the research method and why, and the procedures of how the research was done. The results section, often called the findings section as well. So this is factual again, and this basically contains information about what was found, but without many comments, or any comments. It will contain figures and tables and graphs to help the information, or to make the information easier to understand. And you would expect clear descriptions of the results, highlighting anything that might be considered significant. Yeah, so it's factual. This is what we found, but obviously in quite a lot of detail. Then we have the discussion section, often the most interesting and often the most important. Why? Well, because this is where we expect the writer of the article or writers to analyze what they found and comment on what it all means, and also relate it back to previous research that was mentioned in the lit review or the introduction, and see if they've been able to meet their aims and objectives. And if they have, what does it show? If they haven't met them, again, comment on possibly why not. Remember, not all journal articles are going to be able to change the world, of course, okay? So, not all objectives will be met. It's often the most interesting section, so this is really valuable to read, the discussion section. Then we have the conclusion. Again, like a conclusion to all the essays, dissertations, reviews, the main points. And this is why it's good to read it first, okay, before you go any further. It will often contain details about limitation, so the time, the availability of people, the sample size, Also, things like limitations might be mentioned in the discussion as well, okay? But often they'll be in the conclusion, recommendations for future research as well. which, remember, as we said some slides ago, the recommendations for future research, you know, someone might well go and actually research the area that they've recommended. Accessing journal articles online. Your university will pay to access online journals, but not all of them, because obviously universities can't pay for every single journal access, but you'll get access to a lot, I'm very sure. So sometimes when you log in online, you'll need to access, or so you'll need to use your university email to access the article, okay? Or maybe even search for your institution and then go from there. So when you are using, or you are trying to access articles, you're not sure, look for the Open Athens or the Shibboleth logos on a journals page. You need to log in and access it that way, okay? So journal reading, yeah, practice. So I've been through in this video an overview of the types of information each section can contain. Now, the idea we can use information, use this knowledge to help find more specific information. That's the idea. We start off general and we read more to get more focused, find out more. Remember, read with a purpose. Keep in mind what you need to find. If you cannot use it, don't read it, move on. You will need to have some good reading skills to benefit from journal articles. So reading skills, scanning skills, where you just search for the information you find and want to find and ignore the rest, are very valuable because it'll save you wasting time. And also remember, you may find the same information in different sections. Some of it might be repeated. You know, certainly there's like a lot of overlap between the results section and the discussion section, because the results section says, this is what I found, and the discussion section comments on the possible reasons or the significance for what was found. And so sometimes bits will be repeated. You may well possibly find the results in the discussion section combined together. That's definitely possible. And as I said in the previous slide, sometimes you might find limitations repeated a few times. I've found bits about limitations in an introduction as well. Okay, so if the sections are slightly organized in a different way, don't worry, the information you need will be there somewhere, I promise. So we know journals are very useful, but you have to make sure you have enough time to read them. You can't leave it till the last minute. Journals are not all organized the same way. You might prefer to read a particular type of journal because it's good quality and also gets more attractive, or it suits the way that you like to read. Some journals will combine different sections together. So even though they share the same type of information, some articles will combine sections, like the lit review and the introduction can be together. Maybe the results and discussion can be together. Always need to read with a purpose, and that's not just for journal articles, that's for everything we read. When we want to use something, we need to read with a purpose, be an active reader. Why am I reading this? How can I use it? Where can I use it? Be selective about the different sections. You don't need to read everything, okay? So use the time wisely to find the information you need, depending on what evidence you need for an essay or dissertation. Scanning skills to find specific information before you have a more detailed reading, okay? So all these things together will hopefully make the process of reading journal articles less daunting, if they are at the moment, because as I said, they can be, if you're not used to them, to be thrown in, here's some journal articles, can be a bit, okay, but step by step, it's something you can definitely do. And as I said, it's something that you'll need to do if you want to get the most out of your own study and your degree program, of course. As always, please leave any comments below this video, or you can always email me. And again, the email is below in the blurb. So, academic English skills, as always, if you could subscribe, that'd be great. And there's the website as well, if you want to look at that. The website's always getting updated all the time with new information, so it's never actually finished because it's always going to be developing. But there's the website, there's the subscribe, and thanks for watching, everyone. Any comments, please let me know.